Today we're going over the quadratic formula 1.4 part 2. So we can use the techniques of completing the square to derive a formula for the roots of the general quadratic equation. We have ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So this is the same we did yesterday, the same standard form. Now the quadratic formula gets rearranged with an x equals. So when they do that, we get the formula x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a, where a is not 0. Remember, everything else can be 0, but a cannot be 0. Also, if you get 0 for a, you get a 0 for the denominator, and remember in math that is not possible, or it's there's no solution if you get a 0 at the bottom of a fraction. So remember, a cannot be 0. Everything else can be, just not a. So they want us to use a quadratic formula to find all the real solutions to each question. Now, the difference between the quadratic formula and completing the square is that for the quadratic formula, a can be something other than 1. Which is good, you can just plug the numbers in as long as it's in standard form. I'm going to write the formula up here, so negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. That is the formula. If you need it, I'm going to have it written down for now, but for the test, make sure you know it. Now, let's go over a. So we have our a, we have our b, and we have our c. So I'm going to write x equals negative 5 plus or minus the square root of negative 5 squared minus 4 times 3 times negative 1. All of that over 2 times 3. So this is going to simplify to positive 5 plus or minus 25 plus 12 over 6. This is going to become x equals 5 plus or minus 25 plus 12, 37 over 6. Now, I cannot simplify root 37, so this will be your final answer. You can leave it like this. As long as you have the plus or minus, that gives me that it's 2 solutions. If you can't simplify the radical, please do so. In this case, we can't, so we don't. We just leave it the way it is. So this is for b. b was 4x squared plus 12x plus 9. So again, your 4 is your a, your 12 is your b, and your 9 is your c. So it's going to be x is equal negative b, so negative 12 plus or minus the square root of 12 squared minus 4 times a times c over 2a. Now, I said the formula as I was writing it in. The formula is in the last slide for me. It should be in the same slide for you. Let's go ahead and keep going. So we have x is equal to negative 12 plus or minus square root of 12 is 144. And then 4 times 9 is 144. So we have minus 144 over 8. This is going to simplify to x is equal to negative 12 plus or minus root 0 over 8. Now, the root of 0 is just 0, so we get x is equal to negative 12 over 8. Now, if we add or subtract 0 from this, it's not going to matter. So we get x is equal to negative 12 over 8, which you can simplify to x is equal to negative 3 over 2. Now, usually we will get 2 answers. And we do. If we add or subtract 0, we get 2 answers. This parabola just happens to cross the x-axis there. And that will be it. All right, the question C was x squared plus 2x plus 2 is equal to 0. Your a is 1. There's nothing in front of the x, but it's a 1. Your b is 2, and your c is also 2. So we have x is equal to negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4 times a times c over 2a. So I plug the information in. We get x is equal to negative 2 plus or minus 4 minus 8 over 2. We get x is equal to -2 plus or minus -4 over 2. Now, because we get a negative right here, that you can't take the square root of that. You can't take the square root of a negative number, so your answer is actually going to be no solution. Now, the discriminant is the following box summarizes those observations, and we're talking about the discriminant. The discriminant of the equation ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, again where a is not 0, is b squared minus 4ac. Now, before I keep going, I'm going to write the quadratic equation. Notice how the discriminant is the thing right under the square root. So you don't have to memorize a whole new equation, just know that what's under the square root is called the discriminant. Now, after you solve the discriminant by itself, if your answer is greater than 0, then you have 2 real solutions. If your answer is equal to 0, then you have exactly 1 solution. And if your answer is less than 0, so a negative number, we have no real solution. Now here they want us to use the discriminant to determine how many real solutions each equation has. Now I'm going to write if the discriminant is greater than 0, we're going to get 2 solutions. I'm just going to write a tiny summary. If the discriminant is equal to 0, we get 1 solution, and if the discriminant is less than 0, we get no solution. So I'm just writing the little cheat sheet on the top while we go over these. Now for A, we have the equation x plus 4x minus 1. So this is your A, this is your B, and this is your C. Your 1, your 4, and your -1 are your A, B, and C respectively. And remember that the discriminant is what is under the square root. So what's under the square root? B squared minus 4AC. So we're going to go ahead and write 4 squared minus 4 times 1 times -1. Here we get 16 plus 4, and we get 20. So since 20 is bigger than 0, we get 2 real solutions. Again, we do the same thing for B. We get, again, B squared minus 4AC. Your A is your 4, your B is your -12, and your C is your 9. So we do -12 squared minus 4 times 4 times 9. So we get 144. We already did 4 times 4 times 9 previously. We know that's 144. So we get 0. So since the discriminant is equal to 0, we get only 1 real solution. And then we're going to do the same thing for C. So we have our B squared minus 4AC. We have our A is 1/3, our B is -2, and our C is 4. So we're going to do -2 squared minus 4 times 1/3 times 4. So we're going to get 4 minus 16 over 3. So let's make that into a fraction that we can work. This is going to become 12 over 3. So we get -4 over 3. And now -4 over 3 is less than 0, so we get no solution. Now guys, for no solution, you're welcome to write the whole word, no solution. You're welcome to write endpoint S or a 0 with a line crossing over it. Those are 3 ways of writing no solution. Just make sure that you either write it some way, shape, or form, that you let me know there's no solution. But this is it for today's notes.